Hello and welcome to the Everyday Adventure podcast. My name is Nikki Bass and I will be bringing you thoughts and ideas and hopefully some inspiration on how to build more adventure into your everyday life. I'm really excited today to introduce Amanda Tutton to the podcast. Amanda was introduced to me by a mutual connection, and when I found out more about her story, I just thought I've got to have her on the show. It's just such an interesting journey, and there's so many. I mean, she's done so many amazing things. She's a snowboard instructor, a heli bike guide, she's a ski patroller based out in Queenstown in New Zealand. And while she's done these incredible adventures, it's the path and the journey of how she's got to that, and also how she supports clients in going on their adventures that I'm really excited to explore. So thank you so much for joining me, Amanda. Brilliant to have you here. I guess my first question really is, I know you moved to New Zealand, I think it was about 10 years ago, and I was just wondering what sort of motivated you to make that change?
I guess, it was a big change for me. Unfortunately, I'd just come out of a relationship. So, I was grieving quite a lot. I was heartbroken, didn't really know what to do with my life, didn't particularly enjoy the job that I was in at the time. And things kind of fell into place for me to sell up and move on. So I thought, do you know what, I'm going to travel around the world and help heal myself that way. But the main aim was to try and get to my brother in Australia, to go and see him and be with family. And I guess things evolved from there. It didn't always work out when I was in Australia. I, was involved in some of the big floods and cyclones they had there. Couldn't find work and was running out of money. And so decided to go and stay with my uncle and aunt in New Zealand, just in time for the earthquake in New Zealand in 2011. There were definitely some ups and downs in that time, but that's how I sort of initially made it over to New Zealand, stopping on some pretty exciting places along the way.
Gosh, and then from there, really, how did your adventure journey? How did you get started with sort of the snowboard instructing, and from there?
So after the earthquake in Christchurch, I wanted to stay nearby, and I don't know, years ago, when people would ask me what my ideal job was, I'd always say, I'll go in to work on a boat that goes out and sees dolphins every day. Never in a million years thought that would ever happen, but had a look on one of those sort of work for accommodation websites and found a job that went out to see dolphins every day on a boat. So I did that for a few months. It didn't really pay very much, but it certainly helped to heal me in the interim. And that's where I had some time to myself to think about what I really wanted to do. And whereas I wasn't driven by money, I just wanted to get myself happy again. And in the back of my mind, I'd always wanted to do another ski season. I'd done one straight out of university before I joined the army, and thought, I'd love to do another ski season. And so I thought, why not? I just got a little bit of money from selling my car back home, and that paid for my instructor's course. That's how I got to learn how to be an instructor, and then went off and did a bit of experience in Japan. And again, came back to New Zealand very riskily because I didn't have a job to go to. I actually didn't get through the first phase of interviews.
Oh, wow.
So flew back hoping to get a job through a hiring clinic, and fingers crossed, worked hard and got a job. And that's how I got into snowboard instructing, and was a snowboard instructor for, 7 years, I guess, in the winters, on and off. And this last couple of years, wanted a bit more of a challenge and decided to get my qualifications to do ski patrolling. Yeah.
Amazing.
And I suppose from there, I wondered what to do in the summer. And I saw a job advert for an adventure guide. Didn't really know what the qualifications were or not, but it sounded like my cup of tea, and applied. And luckily my boss at the time, he liked the fact that I'd got some military experience, and the fact that I also grew up on a farm, which meant that perhaps I had a bit more sort of problem solving skills. And he took me on as a co-guide. So I was basically had another guide as well to go around the country with. We then started taking trips of tourists hiking and biking around the South Island. It was really good fun.
Oh, incredible. I love the fact that so much of what you've said have just been, I saw a job advert and I just thought, I'll apply for it and see where it goes. Because I think so much of when people talk about going on adventures or doing something really different, one of the things they talk about, right, well, you need a really concrete plan, and you need to really have thought, there needs to be so many different things in place. And I think that can sometimes be off-putting for people, because absolutely why, if you're doing a big adventure, it's important to plan. But actually just that getting started of, what's the first step that I can do? Or, like you said, just looking at job adverts going, that's something I fancy. Maybe I'll just give it a go and see what happens.
That's how I've actually done a lot of my adventures. Years before I ended up in the careers that I was in, I was watching a nature program, and the guy was kind of narrating the program whilst kayaking amongst killer whales. And I was like, well, he's actually talking to the camera whilst he's doing this. Why, that looks pretty cool. So I just did a bit of Googling and was like, you can go on holiday and kayak amongst killer whales. Sign me up. And again, I wouldn't say I'm a particularly strong kayaker, but it was, 4 days out in the wilderness in Canada, and it's something you can do. You can find inspiration everywhere.
And like you said, just taking that step, going, okay, I'm going to give this a go and see what happens. I mean, you sound like you've had some really incredible adventures. I guess out of all of them, what's maybe taken you outside of your comfort zone the most? What's been the biggest challenge?
Well, there's been a couple. Firstly, on my way to Australia back in the beginning was I went to Hawaii, and I wanted to see the lava going into the sea at night, which sounded quite ambitious. And I headed to Big Island, where they've got the sort of lava flowing into the sea, and found out that you need to go to Volcanoes National Park. And I did all my research and sort of got there, and there was just, a little dash of smoke. And I was like, that's not really what I was after. And saw a little local tour company who was like, yes, just pay $50 here and we'll take you to the lava. And being a sort of tight backpacker, I was like, oh, my last $50. And anyway, paid him and went walking over razor sharp rock along the sort of ocean edge until we get pretty close. And they said, oh, we're about to walk on a bench now. And everywhere I'd seen in Volcanoes National Park had been signs saying, don't walk on benches, they're, unstable bits of land. And he was like, yeah, you could die. I could die. We could all die. But that's the only way you're going to see the lava. And I had to have a big talk to myself. And I was like, oh, gosh. And it turned out to be one of the most magnificent things I've ever done, because the whole time I was thinking I was going to die. But you could feel the heat of the lava underneath your feet. You could see kind of the stars all above you, feel it on your face. And it was like one of the most moving experiences that I've ever had. But again, I hadn't kind of planned exactly for that to happen, but I saw an opportunity and thought that was worth taking. But again, more recently, what I've probably found most challenging is when I went to do the job of patrol. And in my head, I decided that I wanted a bit more of a challenge. I'd done everything I could do as a snowboard instructor. Time for a new challenge. Turned out that fate was like, here you go, here's a challenge. It's the hardest thing to learn so many new skills. I'm not particularly fond of heights, and I had to learn how to climb lift towers to potentially evacuate customers. I had to learn how to use rigs, which are kind of sleds that you would hold on to and collect people that were injured. I had to learn lots of first aid. And so every day I'm kind of like terrified by my lack of knowledge and skills. Got really overwhelmed. There were days where I was crying because I thought I was going to hurt somebody more than I was going to help them. But every day you kind of get a little bit better. And then you've also got a team around you that want to support you. And so they're like, oh, come on, I'll take you and we'll do a practice of this and a practice of that. And so about halfway through the season, I've slowly built up my confidence to start enjoying it a little bit more. So hopefully this next season might be a bit more successful and stress-free. But yeah, that was pretty challenging.
Gosh, yeah, I can imagine that probably was quite stressful. Probably justified.
You've got to be careful what you wish for.
No, absolutely. But I also think it's that really interesting thing that, what you were saying about looking for another challenge, that actually what you were already doing by most people's standards was probably really up there in terms of adventure. But actually, as you push the edges of your comfort zone, that expands. And then you're like, what else can I do to take myself out of that? And then you find yourself in the situation sometimes going, okay, I was more comfortable back there. Yeah. And how you kept going in that, I think that's really interesting, particularly around the community side of things, which I think is something we often talk about.
There's often a perception of what people do, and you've got those diagrams of what people think you do, what your mum thinks you do. what children think you do and then what you actually do. And as a ski instructor, you know, a lot of the time you're just looking after little children and taking them to the toilet. And
which is a challenge in itself, but yeah, different sort.
Yeah, so once you've sort of mastered something, I think it's always good to keep pushing yourself and keep learning, because, you know, that's what makes life interesting and what makes you want to go after more.
Definitely.
A lot of the time, like a few years ago, I took up downhill mountain biking, and, you know, you would talk to my grandmother and she'd be like, why are you doing that? You know, you can barely ride a bike. And it's just like skiing. You start off on a green run that most people that could ride a bike could, you know, ride down. And then that gets a little bit, you know, I've got this, a little bit boring. Let's try blue run. And you've got that. And then ages later, you've seen what these black runs look like. They look like death. But, you know, you just start creeping forward and getting a little bit better until one day you're sort of at the top of a black run going, oh, I'll give that a go. And the feeling you get from completing it, you know, maybe it's addiction to adrenaline or what have you, but the fact that 3 years ago you looked at something and you're like, no way. And then you slowly chip away at things. And I suppose, little goals.
Definitely. And that thing of being able to look back as well and go, actually, the achievement comes from the fact that I know where I started from with this. Other people might not necessarily know that, or, you know, just see the end result. But actually, I know where I started. I know how I was feeling at the top of that green run all those months ago. So to do this feels something, you know, you get something internally from it, I think, in terms of a sense of achievement, a sense of knowing what you're capable of. And that's really powerful as well.
And I think that's it. And it's like, it's knowing yourself and what you can do at the start, and then knowing how much to push yourself. And if you don't know, you've probably got friends around you that can help with that and support you and encourage you. But at the same time, a few years ago, I decided to do something I didn't like doing, which was running, which a lot of people are brilliant at. I'm rubbish at running. And I didn't start off with thinking I'm going to run a marathon, because I know that I'm not very good at running. So I thought, well, I'll start with a 10K and then we'll get to a half marathon. I still haven't got to a full marathon yet, because that sounds terrifying. But it's sort of knowing what you can do and little by little getting there.
I love that you started with the 10K. Most people are like, maybe I'll go for a walk around the block, see how it feels.
I looked like a beetroot afterwards. I started with a 10K. I was probably a bit ambitious.
Awesome. So I guess the next question, because you must have, like you said, you know, you've spent so much time working with clients and I guess taking them outside of their comfort zones, or them being in situations that, whilst they might have thought on paper that they signed up for it, I'm really excited, and they get somewhere and think, I don't know if I can do this. How do you support people in that situation? I mean, what have you found, I guess, works with people who are either, you know, anxious, or suddenly that, you know, that fear kicks in?
So there's definitely lots of different techniques, and it's getting to know that person and what motivates them, you know, why they're there in the first place. So I think that if somebody signed up to go on a trek or something, they've already made that decision that they want to do it, I suppose. So they have the motivation, and then sort of finding, is it the ambition of getting to the top? So encouragement all the way, but also breaking down it into small goals. I had a lady that saw the top of the mountain and just burst into tears, because it just seemed so impossible that we would ever get there, so far away. And you just go, well, we're just going to go across here a little bit and we'll get to that first marker. And then I start chatting to them and distracting them. We talk about their life, and before they know it, they're about 5 markers further up. So a lot of ways to do it is distracting people as well, getting them to talk to you. And then before you know it, you've got halfway up the mountain and you've already got a beautiful view to look at. So you've got a sense of achievement after a certain amount. And then you start talking and setting the next goal. So breaking it up, encouraging it. And the other thing is, a lot of people have come on holiday with people that can support them. So surrounding yourself with those people that are positive people that are going to encourage you rather than bring you down as well. And I guess that's why a lot of people like a guided trip, I suppose, because you've got somebody encouraging you and being positive, and then pointing out every little plant along the way, and as you go, and some stories and history. So and it is that sense of achievement when people get to the top makes my day. It's made their day, but I get to see another a mountain that I've been up several times through lots of different people's eyes, and they all pick out something different and they all have their own sense of achievement, and it's magical. Yeah.
Really rewarding, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And so you've alluded to it as we've been talking anyway, but what would be the one piece of advice if you've either, I guess, got a new client who's about to start, or somebody who's looking at what you've done, think, actually, that sounds amazing. I'd love to get started on a journey. What advice would you give them?
I suppose one of the quotes I like is that, you know, life deals you a hand. It's up to you how you play it. You know, you can be in a difficult situation, but there's always opportunity there. And so surround yourself with people that will encourage you along your journey and help you. And then make a goal, have a dream. And if that dream seems impossible at the time, you know, break it up into smaller dreams, make it a bit more manageable to do. I'm very fortunate to have people around me to help me. I don't always get it right. I've failed so many times at many things, but you know, a bit of drive and dreaming helps you get a long way.
Awesome. That's such good advice. I think you've said it several times. I think that point about having people around you who've got your back, who are spurring you on and encouraging you. I think sometimes that gets missed out in some of the adventure stories we hear, that, you know, it becomes this sort of lone person striving to do it for themselves, you know, and I always when I talk about resilience, that what's so important, we're group animals in the end. We need those people around us who are building us up and spurring us on. You can do it without, but actually what a difference it makes to have people who are cheerleading for you too.
Yeah, and I think, you know, they may be your best friends, they may be your work colleagues, but if you don't have those sorts of people, there's lots of different clubs and societies that you can join that offer those support networks as well that can be good. But all those people that climb Everest, you know, you don't see the sort of 200 porters that have carried all their stuff up there, that have laid the route for them so that they can stand at the top. There's a team of people behind them. And yeah, so finding your little team and your little tribe to help support you is really cool. That's been so amazing. Thank you so much, Amanda. Really appreciate it. If people want to find out more about what you do, or just see some gorgeous pictures of Queenstown and the mountains, where can they go? Well, I was saying to you before that at some point, hopefully, I might write a book about all of this, so you can hear all the funny stories from my adventures. Otherwise, I'm on Instagram at Tutton4. So yeah, you can check out some of my pictures. I'm probably a bit of a lazy Instagrammer, but at some point there'll be some more adventures on there, hopefully. Brilliant. Well, we'll have to have you back once you've written your book, and you can talk to us all about that too. No worries. Next adventure. Thanks so much again. It's been lovely to speak to you. Thank you. No worries. Take care. Bye. So I don't know about you, but I personally found hearing Amanda's story and her journey and her adventures so inspiring. I love the quote that she used: life deals you a hand, but it's up to you how you play it. And that came through so clearly in all of the stories she told, all of the things that had happened to her, that the adventure in a way, or the first adventure, had started from quite a painful place, but that at every stage she made a decision, she made a choice about what she was going to do with that. When she faced challenges, actually, what's the next step that I need to take? And I thought there was something really powerful in her message around, you don't need to necessarily have a grand plan. You don't necessarily need to have everything mapped out. All you really need is to find the courage somewhere to take the first step and go for it. Identify what it is that you want to do. And then whether it's, and this I think applies just as much in wider life as it does in adventure, whether it's applying for a job that you really want to do, whether it's connecting with somebody that you really admire, that first bit where you have to just pluck up the courage to just reach out or just do it. Actually, sometimes you don't need much more of a plan than that. And that's not saying that absolutely on some of the big adventures, it's really useful to have things mapped out and in the logistics and have an idea what you need to be doing, where you're going. But that sometimes I think the biggest barrier to us getting started is this sense that we should really know how it's going to look, and that we should really have a clear plan and a clear idea of how things are going to move forward. And when we don't have that, it can make us feel, well, maybe that's a sign that I shouldn't be doing this.
and that sometimes we just need to take that chance and step outside of our comfort zone, sit with that discomfort. And in the end, that's how we grow. And I think that theme of growth and development and pushing yourself further and finding out what you're really capable was such a theme in Amanda's words and in her stories. And that was something that I think really resonated for me. Anyway, I really hope you enjoyed it. As always, feel free to get in touch. Find me on Instagram, Resilience at Work, or you can join our Facebook group, the Everyday Adventure Club. Or otherwise, it'd be great if you can leave me a review and let me know what you think. Anyway, we'll be back next week. I'm listening to another story of adventure, and I hope you'll join us then. Speak to you soon. Bye.